quite a long weekend, and we are here willing and always ready to soldier on. Karibu sana. This is Morning Cafe. My name is Linda Alela. Every other Monday at least every day, you know what, I'm always taught by Barack that I should not say every other Monday. He will be here with us. I hope he's not watching, because if he is, then he'll be so disappointed with me. We say every other day, no, every day of the week. I am here to make sure that you are informed, you are entertained, and you are educated. Welcome on board, and we equally welcome your feedback as we look forward to hear what it is that is happening where it is that you are. And of course, the hashtag is Morning Cafe at Linda_Lela TV47KE. We'd love to hear from you as we kickstart this beautiful day, and looking forward to an incredible one. Moving forward, we look at the politics of the day, we look at the events and what shapes what is being talked about today. I mean, so much in regards to the politics of the day, so much in regards to international relations, and we'll be looking at that. And, you know, we look at that, order coming from the United Kingdom and the response of Kenya. We also do not forget to discuss how Kenyans are disappointed at how we are handling matters COVID-19, and importantly, how we are handling the debt that is, hitting the ceiling badly. And so Kenyans have petitioned IMF not to proceed and award Kenya these loans that we speak about. What does it mean? And so we'll be discussing these key issues right here on the broadcast. Later on also, we look at how the clearing and forwarding company has been affected at this point of COVID-19. And we also pick some lessons that are very, very important at this point in time. So make sure that you keep me company as I take you through from now all the way to 9 a.m. Asante sana for always keeping it TV47. We kickstart the broadcast right now, and we'll be having Dr. Barack Muluka, who's a communications advisor, joining me later on alongside the Speaker for Nyeri County, that is Honorable John Kagushia. And then later on is when we'll get to the aspect of clearing and forwarding, that is alongside Minor Wayangline. So make sure that you keep it right here, a show that is lined up for you and incredible indeed. First things first, what has been captured on the papers and the People Daily: ODM dilemma over Raila 2022 prospect, and leader failed to beat the application deadline, throwing the nomination process into a spin, with officials wondering what to do next given his huge support base. We'll be looking at this, and we seek to engage these specialists so that they can tell us what they make of this. What does it mean? Is he going to throw this out, and is he going to be a kingmaker, or what plays out in regards to this? Remember, he said his main point or push right now is the aspect of the BBI, the Building Bridges Initiative, or the Building Bridges Bill. Once it sails through, he says he's going to tell us his move. What does this mean? We'll be looking at it later on, a story captured on page 2. And how is it going to change the political spin of ODM? And 8 billion BBI deal for populous counties. Yes, top 5 devolved units bound to reap the most on this particular initiative. And on the aspect of the windfall, new formula for revenue sharing proposed in the bill will see about 40 counties reap big, and but the remaining 7 counties with huge land mass but low population collectively lose a similar amount. A story captured on page 4. We are talking about 122 billion, that is about 8.1 billion amounts to be realized from reducing the per capita for the above 7 counties: Tana River, Samburu, Marsabit, Lamu, Isiolo, Turkana, and Taita Taveta. And so we'll be looking at all this later on as we proceed with the broadcast. The key stories as captured there. Members of Parliament want the needy given COVID relief cash. And we'll be looking at this. These are proponents of the DP, or better say the foot soldiers of the DP. And so we'll be discussing the COVID-19 aspect as Kenyans complain on how this has been dealt with in the country. At this particular time, we almost had the same experience in 2022. The government offered ways of cushioning the common mwananchi, but this time around, it's a whole different affair. What could have informed that? We'll be looking at that, and we get to hear the views of the panelists later on as we proceed. Kenyans linked to terrorism in Mozambique And that's a story captured on page 5. Matter terrorism, the global fraternity always on the out to make sure that they are able to deal with this problem. We can only wait to see, but then again, damning reports coming out in regards to that. And you can always grab the copy, page 5 of the People Daily. You get to see what it speaks about. Tough options for ODM Raila Odinga as a move that is in a bid to 2022. We'll be looking at that as we proceed. Tribunal revokes a suspension of 3 Jubilee ward representatives. That is also a story that continues to happen, especially on the aspect of the purge within the Jubilee party. And so much is happening. Populous counties to receive 8 billion more in BBI deal. I have touched on all that, and we'll be looking at it as we proceed with the broadcast. What does the Daily Nation speak about this morning? Succession, why 2022 is a do or die affair. Each man faces unique challenges that undermine their position on the treacherous terrain that is political deal making, and how they navigate these hurdles that is ahead of the 2022 presidential election will hugely determine their fate. A story captured on page 7, and we discussed that later on alongside my panelists, with all the 5 contenders seeking or eyeing this particular top job, and the alliances are unlikely to hold. We can only wait to see what plays out. And vaccine, more men have received the jab. The uptake by health workers, teachers, and security personnel is low. A story captured on page 10 and 11. 238,648 have been vaccinated, that is, people have been vaccinated so far. 57% are male and 43% are female. A picture being painted here of the counties that have received this, and I mean the number of people that have received the jab in different counties. So we'll be discussing matters the jab later on, even as we look at the aspect of the Sputnik and that declaration by the government that it should be banned and what this means. And so later on we discuss that. 3 women seized after man is dragged into or in-house and robbed. Tough lessons to learn. That is for Narian, who was having a good time over the Easter holiday. That's a story captured on page 3. 9 candidates have been shortlisted for the position of Chief Justice starting tomorrow. Read an authoritative assessment of each of the candidates ahead of the interviews by the Judicial Service Commission. We'll be looking at that. We'll be following up on that closely to keep you up to speed, even as we seek to know who is going to take up the mantle. Well, from the acting Chief Justice as at now, that is Philomena Mwilu, after receiving the mantle from retired Chief Justice, that is CJ David Maraga. And so we'll be looking at all that, following up closely just to keep you up to tabs. That's what has been captured on the papers. And I mean, we also have what is said to be done in regards to matters education. That should be on the daily diary. But before that also, let's see what has been captured on this particular aspect on matters roads. There's not much of traffic on the roads, and so there's no cause for alarm. Let's see what is happening in Nairobi. And here we are. What is happening on the roads? In most cases, you will look at the key roads. Jogoo Road is a bit jammed up this morning. Let's start with Jogoo Road here. And yes, right from around Makadara area, you find that there's some tenets of traffic as you are headed to town. And then you get to a point where it is a bit heavy, but then it eases up as you proceed. Actually, it's not looking so good on Jogoo Road this morning. So even as it eases up, it's a bit more or less like, you know, extra jammed up in comparison to the other days. And moving on to the city, you realize that this gets to a point where it eases up. And so once you get somewhere close to the city, it does not look as ugly this morning. And these other areas, let's see where else there could be some tenets of traffic this morning. This is around Lusaka Road. Lusaka Road does not look so bad this morning. And just connecting to the likes of Langata Road, even as you get to connect to Mombasa Road. Langata Road is all rosy, and somewhere around Bagathi Way, there are road works happening. And down there, all the way to the Wilson, to and from to town from Langata Road, is evidently not looking so bad this morning. And this is Mombasa Road. Let's look at what Mombasa Road looks like. As you can see, there's some bit of traffic as you headed to town around Capital Center there. Let's look at this at the bit of Mombasa Road. It's a bit heavy, somewhere around Cabanas all the way to Imara Daima. It is quite heavy there, some level of roadworks here. Equally, as you can see, probably informing this jammed up affair along Mombasa Road. So if you're taking Mombasa Road, you know what it is that you expect this morning around Syokimau, Gateway Mall. It does not look so bad and so looking at this other direction, and you realize that yes, traffic is not as bad down as you get to connect to the southern bypass, and that is along Mombasa Road. Here is the southern bypass, which looks all rosy this morning. And coming to these sides where you connect to the likes of Likoni Road, it does not look so bad this morning. And Juja Road, yes, Juja Road is also not bad this morning, as you can see. As you get to connect to these sides of Komarok, pretty much of an ease. And this is Outer Ring Road. Outer Ring to and from also, so that as you get to connect to Thika Road, is not as bad until you get to these areas of around Manyanja Road, Donholm Rail Stop. There you get some tenets of traffic, but doesn't look as ugly. As you connect to these other sides, you realize that there's some tenets of traffic around Makadara. That is when you get to connect to Jogo Road. But all the way down to Embakasi and Airport Road doesn't look so bad this morning. And so coming to this other side, let's see how it goes on the Thika Road. Thika Road is not as bad all the way from this side of Githurai, where in most cases you'll find that's where traffic begins. And going down all the way as you're headed to the city, you get to connect to these sides of Driveway and pretty much of an ease. Madari Mental Hospital, that is somewhere in Muthaiga, not so bad this morning. Connect to Pangani and Muranga Road and Forest Road, pretty much of an ease this morning, so you need not to worry. And equally Ngara, most of the roads that connect to this place are not looking so bad. This is somewhere around Chibromo. It does not look as ugly this morning. And Wayaki Way is also much of a breeze. Some roadworks happening down there, but then again, it does not stop traffic from flowing. So that is to mean if there's roadworks, in most cases, you'll find some tenets of traffic. So if you're stepping out, kindly step out as early as now to avoid that traffic as you get to connect to these other sides of James Gishuru, getting to this side of Gitanga Road. It's pretty much of an ease, as you can tell right there. So you need not to worry if you're taking that such direction. Ngong Road is also not bad this morning, as you can see. Ngong Road to and from town are pretty much of an ease. As you get to the city itself, within the CBD, not much of traffic, no cause for alarm. So that's more like it on the roads. In the event that there's something else that I'd want you to have the attention of, I'll be here to keep you posted. Let's look at what we have in terms of news. And musician Violet Asylee, commonly known by her stage name as Zian Achana, is being held by police in connection with the death of her husband. So much revelations coming in regards to this particular case that has been followed up closely. So here is a report or an development in regards to that particular one. Let's listen in.
The adults pictured in this photo are a husband and wife. They have 2 children. 27-year-old Violet Asylee, a musician commonly referred by her stage name Zian Achana, and 37-year-old Daniel Omolo Onyango, a KDF Special Forces officer based in Gilgil, commonly known as Omosh. Omolo is now deceased after he was allegedly killed in the wee hours of Sunday morning after a violent confrontation ensued between the couple, according to neighbors' accounts. We visited Makiwanga area of Kahawa Wendani in Kiambu County, where the murder allegedly happened in this 3-bedroomed house. According to those whom we spoke to, Omolo was well known in Kahawa Wendani neighborhood. The deafening silence in the compound encapsulates the sadness in this neighborhood. Their immediate neighbor, Lennox Soit, remembers too well when Achana knocked on their door, requesting for help to rush Omolo to hospital, but it was too late. Lennox says they found him lying on the sitting room, half naked, and was ostensibly dead, but Achana insisted on having him taken to the hospital.
Hiyo siku sisi tulikuwa tumelala, kakam, Zian Achana kakam. kaanza kutunokia, atuambia around saa 9, atuambia Dan walikuwa wanasumbuana, ameanguka, amefaint. But sikuenda, tukaona jua hakuna gari na nini, na pia kwa kiasi kumwangalia tunaona amekufa. But saa later wakampeleka hosi, vile gari ilipatikana, wakaambiwa wakaconfirm amekufa, wakarudi na yeye. Then sasa kama akachukuliwa baadaye around saa 2 asubuhi. Yeah.
Lennox reminisces seeing a jovial Omolo on Saturday afternoon. He says he was in high spirits and his death caught him by shock. If he was not chewing cat within the neighborhood, Omolo was playing with his dogs, Kuna and Hunter, as confirmed to us by Boda Boda riders and the children we found within the apartments.
Nimeona hiyo siku, sikuwa nimeona huo Ziana. So Dan, the whole day, ameshinda hapa, natoka narudi kama kawaida tu. It was just a normal day. Mara mingi Dan ndo alikuwa huku, achana alikuwa anakuja mara moja. Yeah, alikuwa anakuja na familia. So basically na familia wako wanaishi huku. Yeah.
Kwa hivyo wachani alikuwa anakuja kama matembezi.
Yeah.
Kazi yake ilikuwa tu boda, nifikishe stage, nifikishe pale kwa kambi, tuende shop, hivyo tuende jaba, mambo kama hiyo. Lakini uhusiano yake na bibi hapo siwezi elezea sana.
Labda unaweza sema apart from nyenye uhusiano wake na watu wa kawaida huko ilikuwa ni uhusiano wa aina gani?
Uhusiano yake na watu wa kawaida ilikuwa uhusiano mzuri tena zaidi. Juu yeye hakuwa anasubua mtu, bora tu akona kadogi kake alikuwa anaenda ameshika, hakuna maneno mengine. Salamu tu za kawaida akiwapata, mko aje hivyo.
Kwa mtu wa watu alikuwa mtu mpoa. Hata around Kahawa most people wanamjua. Hiyo jina Dan ama Mosh ni jina common. From Kahawa area zote watu wanamjua ya. Msempoa na maneno na mtu.
Paul, a Boda Boda rider within the area, remembers carrying him that Saturday afternoon and was in high spirits as usual. A grief-stricken Celestine Odera, a friend to the couple, says Omolo was humble and friendly man. Amid sobs and tears, she says Achana was quarrelsome and violent.
Kuna yeye na bado nimembeba hadi pale kwa stage. Tulikuwa tu msefi, alikuwa tu msefiti. Hakuwa na mambo mengi, nikimbeba tu yeye anaripa, hana mambo mengi na ati kukosa kulipa bike ama nini. Yeye tu alikuwa mtu ambaye ametulia. Hakuwa na mambo mengi na watu na alikuwa mtu mtu wa watu.
Dan is a very humble guy. He can't even slap someone. Dan cannot even pass you in the road without saying hi. It's very painful for a soldier to die like this, for sure. They were living happily. The lady was so quarrelly. Yeah, and she was always up and down in the relationship. She used to leave and come back all along. Yeah, complain. Even the mother, Dan's mother, used to complain about the lady. Yeah, I can say she is a very violent woman.
It is said Omolo was uncomfortable with Zian Achana's music career, and the confrontations on that fateful Saturday night promoted him to glory after he was beaten severally on the chest, fingers and shoulders. Achana is currently being held at Kahawa Sukari police station waiting arraignment in court. Mwangi Maina, TV 47 from Kahawa Wendani, Kiambu County.
Thank you, Mwangi Maina, for that report. Now, national carrier Kenya Airways has suspended flight to the United Kingdom effective 9th this month. The move comes amid a diplomatic row between Kenya and the United Kingdom that has added in the UK's red list, as Muthoni Maina now reports.
Kenya Airways has suspended all flights to the United Kingdom from the 9th of April till further notice. Even as an increased demand by passengers has been witnessed, 2 new additional flights have been added to the list for the 7th and 8th of April. KQ says it took the move due to the directive issued by the government suspending all flights from the UK. The UK and Kenyan governments have been on a back-and-forth war of words in the past few days following the UK's travel restrictions on travellers coming from or transiting through Kenya. This diplomatic strife began on Friday when the British High Commission in Kenya announced that travellers from Kenya or those who transited through Kenya in the past 10 days would not be allowed entry into the UK effective from the 9th of April. The Commission highlighting the spike in the COVID-19 infections in the country. The UK also wants its nationals travelling from Kenya and 37 other countries to quarantine in a government-approved facility for 10 days. Kenyan government, through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, faulted the UK's new travel advisory, saying that the decision by the UK will have deep and far-reaching consequences on the Kenya-UK trade, travel, tourism and security cooperation. Kenya has accused COVID-19 vaccine-producing countries like the UK of discriminating against forthcoming countries, accusing the UK of hoarding the vaccine, describing it as a vaccine apartheid. The UK issued a travel advisory to its nationals, asking them to keep off several parts of the country, including areas within 60 kilometers of the Kenya-Somali border, areas within 15 kilometers of the coast from the Athi-Galana-Sabaki River, and the counties of Garissa, Lamu, and Tana River. Othoni Minor, TV47.
Yes, we'll be discussing that later on the broadcast. Forms the basis of our conversation alongside the next story, which is the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee was expected to present its report on the BBI bill to Parliament Monday, but that did not happen. Parliament is on a one-month recess, and although the JLAC Committee is expected to meet virtually sometime this week, the possibility of having a referendum before June this year is minimal.
The possibility of having a referendum before June this year is still in the dark, despite assurities by BBI proponents that the BBI plebiscite will take place sometime in June or July this year. The Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, which is looking into the Building Bridges Initiative report, was expected to present its report on the same to Parliament by today, the 5th of April.
Present to this committee.
That did not happen, following a resolution by the House last week to suspend parliamentary sittings to curb the spread of the coronavirus disease.
The ordinary sessions of the August House, including those of their committees, are hereby suspended until further notice.
The resolution has placed the BBI referendum proposal at risk by altering Parliament's calendar and subsequently disrupting plans to have the public vote in June this year. But the BBI proposal to create 70 new constituencies is now posing an even greater threat to its viability, following claims by the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission (IEBC) that the creation of the new constituencies is likely to take about 2 years.
During the first delimitation under the Constitution of Kenya 2010, the Interim Independent Boundaries Review Commission undertook data collection and first round of public hearings from May 2009 to November 2010.
Under Article 89 of the criteria for representation, which is by population, that ideally would have put a competent commission under notice that you needed to do some work on the question of delimitation.
According to a draft report by the JLAC Committee, the MPs have argued that according to Clause 2 of Article 89 of the Constitution, any boundary review done by the IEBC should be completed at least 12 months before a general election of members of Parliament. The general election is expected to be held on the 8th of August next year, and according to Clause 4 of Article 89, if a general election is to be held within 12 months after the completion of a review by IEBC, the new boundaries shall not take effect for purposes of that election, meaning even if the new constituencies are created before August next year, they would not be represented in Parliament. However, the JLAC Committee is expected to meet virtually later this week after the BBI co-principals President Uhuru Kenyatta and ODM leader Raila Odinga gave the green light following an alleged secret night meeting before the two inspected several development projects in Nairobi last week. The JLAC Committee hopes to conclude the process by the end of this month to allow for a referendum. Among the contentious issues on the report include the amendment of the report, with Senate Minority Leader James Orengo insisting that the House cannot play a cosmetic role to the report after a public participation exercise. Sources also indicate that Raila's camp raised concerns over the entry of One Kenya alliance. The alliance includes former NASA principals ANC's Musalia Mudavadi, Kalonzo Musyoka of Wiper Party, and Moses Wetangula of Ford Kenya, who recently joined KANU's Gideon Moi. A section of Odinga's allies arguing that the members of the One Kenya alliance might benefit from the new positions created by the BBI, despite the handshake being a Raila Uhuru affair. ODM boss Raila Odinga met his lieutenants in what is believed to be a meeting to quell the BBI standoff. The meeting reaffirmed ODM's commitment to the spirit of the handshake with President Uhuru Kenyatta that has created an environment of peace and stability required to address the pressing issues facing the country.
Facility, we are already finished here.
And Kenyans online have continued to protest the recent International Monetary Fund IMF loan just days after the institution approved a 255 billion loan to Kenya for the third day and counting. Many are restless due to the country's worsening debt crisis.
On Friday, the Easter holiday for Kenyans began with a statement by the International Monetary Fund that it had approved a 255 billion shilling loan for Kenya. Kenyans have since taken to social media with the hashtag Stop Loaning Kenya, many criticizing President Kenyatta's government for returning to the IMF with begging bowls after what they termed as unproductive borrowing from China and Eurobond. In a press release, the IMF board affirmed that the 3-year financing package will support the next phase of Kenya's COVID-19 response, reduce its vulnerabilities while safeguarding resources to protect vulnerable groups. The fund will also advance the broader reform and governance agenda by addressing weaknesses in some state-owned enterprises or SOEs, as well as strengthening transparency and accountability through the anti-corruption framework. On Thursday, an InfoTrack poll revealed that Kenyans and leaders across the political divide are against the government's appetite for foreign loans. According to Walter Omondi, the research manager at InfoTrack, millions of Kenyans feel the country is already burdened with debt.
62% of Kenyans do not think regular borrowing from countries is a good thing. That is, they are opposed to regular borrowing from external donors. 76% of Kenyans are of the opinion that Kenya gets most of its loans from China. 43% of Kenyans perceive bad debt to be money that is borrowed, from foreign countries or that is lost or is wasted through corruption. 52% of Kenyans rate the government's handling of foreign debt poorly. And 81% of Kenyans feel either anxious, fearful, or angry because of the country's level of foreign debt. A majority of Kenyans do not think that regular borrowing from foreign countries is a good thing, despite the fact that we are a country that has many development obligations.
Kwa mnashangaa Kenya kila siku fisadi hauishi na watu hawafungwi. Pesa inakuja inaingia kwa mfuko wa mtu mabilioni na watu hawafungwi.
Magufuli alipochukua uongozi hajawahi kopa, na tukiangalia taifa lake limeendelea mbele sana, liko mbele sana.
Kenya story na mkopo waache kabisa.
Previously, Kenya had kept away from direct budget funding from institutions such as the IMF and the World Bank during retired President Mwai Kibaki's regime. Most of the support came in the form of project supports. Former President Mwai Kibaki took over from the late President Daniel Moi when Kenya's public debt stood at 629 million shillings at 60% of the gross domestic product. Kibaki grew the economy over the next decade with minimal loans. By the time he left in March 2013, he had doubled Kenya's debt to 1.7 trillion shillings, but with an expanded economy to support it, putting debt at 41% of the GDP. Enter President Uhuru Kenyatta's Jubilee regime, which has gone on to borrow at least 7.1 trillion shillings to implement his manifesto in 10 years in power, but struggles to grow the economy, putting that currently at 69.2% of the GDP. IMF will first immediately disburse 33.5 billion shillings for budget support. The lump sum loan is the country's second loan program from the IMF in under 1 year, having received 80.6 billion shillings in May last year to mitigate the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Grace Josephine, TV47.
Speaking of mitigating the COVID-19 effect, a section of Tanga affiliated members of parliament have raised concerns on the new COVID-19 containment measures, which they say have adversely affected the livelihoods of millions of Kenyans. Now, the members of parliament further urging the government to cushion Kenyans as well as direct the recently approved IMF funds towards supporting businesses, as Andrin Kilemi tells us.
The COVID-19 measures have in the past days elicited storm among Kenyans. Majority are accusing the government of failing to put up stringent measures without offering alternative solutions. A section of Tanga members of parliament have also faulted the government's move.
The measures taken are not only robbing from our people their means of livelihood, but are threatening their human dignity as families now face starvation. Fathers and mothers who only 2 weeks ago could fend for and provide food for their children are now sinking into depression as they stare at their starving children sleep without a meal.
Speaking earlier today, the MPs urged the government to find alternative ways for millions of Kenyans in the 5 diseased counties whose businesses and livelihoods have collapsed as a result of the new COVID-19 containment measures, which they say were not well thought out.
Serikali iweze kuwasimamia wale ambao wanafanya kazi katika sekta husika, hasa wale ambao wako kwenye biashara. Na hawa ikiwa wako na madeni ama wako na loni ambazo wamechukua, tunaomba kwamba serikali iweke mpangilio wa kuondoa yale ambayo tunaita interest, wakuwe na interest waiver.
The Tanga MPs further issuing demands to the government to urgently look into what they termed as high priority. Top of their demand is for the government to offer stipends of at least 3,500 per month to 4 million households countrywide. Finance a mass testing and vaccination campaign by allocating a minimum of 50 billion shillings from the defense budget. Finance the interest waiver and business loan to support affected businesses, as well as direct the recently approved IMF loan to acquisition of vaccines in an open and cartel-free manner, among other demands.
The demands by Tanga members of parliament are expected to steer the country ahead, as well as cushion Kenyans against the vast effects of the laid out COVID-19 stringent measures.
This even as Kenyans continue to raise concerns regarding a debt crisis after IMF approved a 255 billion shillings. Andrin Kilemi, TV 47.
All right, the Speaker of Nyeri County is on standby, joining us virtually. And later on, we'll be having Barak Buluka, who's a communications advisor, joining us. But before that, let's loop in Honorable Kagushia so that we can get into the conversation. First, we look at the dailies, and then later on, we look at these ramifications that come along with the begging bowl, or so to speak, over borrowing without having proper debt management processes. And we'll also be looking at this fact of matters, COVID-19, and how the government has handled it, and that push now by the members of parliament or the leaders allied to Deputy President that the government should come up with ways of cushioning individuals that have adversely been affected by COVID-19, and not forgetting the aspect of the handshake, the Building Bridges Initiative or the Building Bridges Bill that is being debated at the level of the houses. So much so is happening and being awaited, even as we look forward to see what JLAC is going to determine in regards to this and when we proceed with the government. But as Salah has highly articulated this matter, it is evident that there are going to be some hiccups before it is declared that the referendum can be carried out, and carried out, that is somewhere around June. So we'll be looking at that later on as we proceed. Mheshimiwa, how are you?
Good morning, Linda. How are you?
Morning, how are you? It's good to have you after a while. Last week you disappeared, but I'm glad you're here today.
Yes, I'm here.
Kindly allow us to go through the papers briefly before we delve deep into the conversation, though a majority of the stories that have been captured on the paper will equally speak of the stories that we'll be looking at as we proceed with the broadcast. But just to get a snippet of your view in regards to how they have been captured on the papers. ODM dilemma over Raila 2022 prospect. The leader failed to beat the application deadline, throwing the nomination process into a spin, with officials wondering what to do next given his huge support base. Right Honorable Raila Odinga has spoken of, the fact that he's going to declare his move after the Building Bridges initiative or the Building Bridges bill has sailed through. We can only wait to see. I don't know whether we should touch on this first or maybe leave it aside. We'll be looking at it as we proceed with the broadcast. I suggest that we leave it aside because it's part and parcel of the conversation this morning. Again, the BBI deal for populous counties. Yes, the conversation is equally here. In regards to the monies that different counties are supposed to get, some of them getting a huge chunk, others not getting a huge chunk, and a breakdown of the same as captured on the People Daily. As far as I'm concerned, it looks like we are forced to somehow touch on this aspect of the BBI. What do you make of the stalemate that stands right now, even as we await the two houses to declare what it is that they think should be done in terms of, having this process to sail through?
Yeah, well, I think the National Assembly, much more the committee that is charged with preparing the report from the public on the BBI is probably trying to play hard to get by not presenting this report to the Assembly. All of us do know that the Assembly's role in this process is much more ceremonial than it is functional, because it doesn't matter the input of the National Assembly. The President will still have to sign whatever the outcome and send it to the public for a debate, and for the referendum. And so I see the National Assembly has decided, especially through that committee, has decided to stall the process, probably to negotiate and to see whether they can also get something maybe like what the MCA did get. Yeah, but I think that definitely that would be unfair, or it will not be right to stand in the way of a process that has already reached this level. I think it's better that now Kenyans do make their own decision on this process. And as it is, and as it stands now, the fact that we have not been able to have this bill presented in the National Assembly, it means that the June deadline that the BBI principles had been allocating, or have been given to Kenyans, that they're going to have a referendum, is seriously affected. Because it's not going to be possible now that the House is going on a recess, which is COVID imposed, and then you expect that they will still come back and have this bill debated and the report sent to the President, and the President will take his time and then give it to the IBC, IBC then to formulate a question and send it to the public for referendum. That really now will practically not be possible to be executed within the remaining short period. And so I'm looking at a situation where the referendum now can only come probably in August or later. Yeah.
All right, Mheshimiwa, we are getting more into the discussion, and I'm afraid that it looks like we are delving deep into this. Probably will be the first one that we'll be capturing or we'll be touching on. And to loop in Dr. Barak Muluka, who's a communications advisor, is on standby. Would love to hear his take on this one. In what appeared as though these two gentlemen were saving the handshake, and equally saving the talk that bedeviled the aspect of the BBI, in the previous, 2 weeks or so to speak. President Uhuru Kenyatta and Right Honorable Raila Odinga appearing, in the presence or in the eye of the public, just to quell these fears that have been in existence. But it looks like it's some more in regards to limbo. One, for the ODM, and secondly, for this particular document. Our very own reporter has taken up a report, or has taken us through a report on the possibilities of the BBI, one sailing through, and if it sails through, the possibilities of it being held, or a referendum being held before, or that is somewhere around June. They say that the possibilities are minimal based on the kind of trajectory that this document takes at this particular stage. We still are not having clear, signs coming from the houses. What do you make of where we are so far? And if we are to look at the legal timelines that have been stipulated, do you suppose then that it will be a fair and a free and a genuine process?
Thank you, Linda. fair and free for me would pertain to the eventual decision that Kenyans would make on the BBI bill, if it should be eventually subjected to a referendum, the way I expect that it is going indeed to be subjected to a referendum. I think there's a lot of playing of ping pong with the law in this country, even where the law seems to be very clear in its letter and spirit. What I understand about this process up to where it has reached is that the two houses of parliament will have an opportunity to interact with the bill without really varying it in any way, and that they can accept it in total or reject it in total, because the Constitution of Kenya, the relevant articles on referenda, do not give the two houses of parliament the mandate to make any variations, nor do they really give the two houses of parliament any mandate to really reject and therefore arrest the process where it has got articles that are protected by the need to go to the public for referenda. And as we have said umpteen times, there are such articles on the architecture and design of government, of the executive, on the judiciary, on independent bodies and commissions, and which would require that this thing goes to the public for a referendum. Therefore, the ongoing arguments are purely academic and unnecessarily polarizing, because regardless of what decision the two houses of parliament eventually reach, this thing, once the courts have spoken and expressed themselves about the cases before them, if they should determine that the process goes on, then it should go to the IEBC, which would then invariably frame the question or the questions for the referenda. And at that point, I would expect that it would be free and fair. And therefore, I do not understand why this all drama, why all this ping pong, the toing and froing. I cannot understand it, because beyond it being pure political hot air, I cannot understand why Kenyans are being treated to this.
Okay. Well, the biggest question then would be, people of the caliber of Senior Counsel, James Orengo, with proper understanding of law, proper understanding of what the Constitution dictates, are of the argument or of the school of thought that maybe the houses should be allowed to debate on this one. The houses cannot just have a ceremonial, overseeing aspect of this particular process. What would you make of that? And while it could be academia or something of the sort, don't you then think it would have a huge ramification in terms of having this document go to the next stage, looking at the aspect of timelines?
I would say, like Orengo says, that the two houses of parliament, in principle, should have the opportunity to consider and make variations in that bill. However, the law does not make that provision. James Orengo is being wise after the act. He's bringing up arguments that he should have brought up 11 years ago. They have been overtaken, like Orengo himself and Raila Odinga like saying, the train has left the station, it has gone. The River Nile has left the Lake Victoria. It's going, it is somewhere in Khartoum. So he should not be treating us to these kinds of arguments today. But then there are two James Orengos. I belong to a generation that knew the old James Orengo, and that is completely confounded by the new James Orengo, the born-again James Orengo, whom, as George Orwell would say in the dystopian novel titled 1984, has struggled against himself, and he has won the war against himself. And now he does and says the kinds of things that he would have never said in the 1980s and in the 90s. They are two completely James Orengos, and I do not know whether after he has been saying these things, when he goes home and looks at the person in the mirror, I do not know what he thinks about that person. I do hope he's listening and watching, and if he's not, someone should send him a clip of what I'm saying, because there was the James Orengo who was elected in 1980 in the by-election in Ugenya, and who fought for democracy and the rule of law in this country. And there's the new James Orengo, who is a disciple of the person who is called Baba.
All right, well, Mheshimiwa, just to loop you in again on this particular matter, as you expound some more on what Barack speaks of. And I am sure it's not just about James Orengo. There are a couple of people, or there are a couple of individuals, including Baba himself.
Yes,
that many have...
even Baba himself, he has struggled against himself, and he has won the war against himself.
Yes.
My teacher and friend, Professor Peter Anyang' Nyong'o, has fought the war against himself, and he has won.
Well, all right, Mheshimiwa, as you respond to that, or basically, top up to that argument, then one would want to argue that so much has been brought to the fore, and numerous occasions we've talked about this current constitution being amongst the best, the very progressive, but equally pinpointed loopholes within, lacuna in law, speaking of different aspects that probably could have been revisited, maybe informing this conversation of, amending the document as it stands. But equally, when you look at such occurrences, then do you suppose that right after this process, if we are to go to it the way the Constitution speaks, then later after, we might need to have more conversations in regards to reviewing such clauses that speak of what it is that we now consider a limbo today?
Well, I think there are many schools of thought. In the first place, there's a school of thought that thinks that the Constitution of 2010, as it stands now, is able to take us to the next level as a country. As you have clearly put it, that is, in fact, it is the most progressive constitution in the world. And this was said because of how this constitution seemed to appreciate people's freedoms and the human rights. It seems to actually protect human rights. And the definition of human rights in this constitution has been much more broader than has been achieved in many other constitutions. And for that reason, many people have thought, well, we can survive with this constitution for rather long as a country. And that is why many people, or rather there's a school of thought that do not advocate for the change of the constitution. And probably that's why you also have a group now called Linda Katiba, who thinks that if we do change any of the articles that we have today, then we are actually watering down what we've been having so far. For example, I heard people talk about the issue of introduction of the responsibilities. So far, the Constitution speaks to the rights of the people, but then you have a new introduction of the responsibilities to the rights. And some people have argued that then these responsibilities will be coming to cancel out the rights in a way, because then you will be claiming that your rights have been infringed on, and then someone else will say, but you did not also honor your responsibilities as a citizen. And so kind of there is now going to be that neutralization of the human rights that you have been enjoying in the old constitution. But well, the other school of thought, of course, is that we need to change some of the offending articles, or some of the articles that do not seem to appreciate, for example, the issue of representation. And many people now argue that once you look at these representation issues, especially where we are saying that money should follow the numbers, is definitely bringing the question about how much money is it that we are going to add in our basket to be able to service these numbers that we now want to look at. And I've seen one of your headlines there talking about the 8 billion Kenya shillings that is required. I don't know whether it is 8 billion or 8 billion, but this is definitely quite an amount that is required now to come and service the issue of representation as compared to the issue of resources. So we have a situation where we have the proponents, and of course we have the people who oppose these kind of changes. But then the issue of immediately after these changes in the constitution, we having to look again at other articles that are probably going to be offending, or even to look at the same articles that we are introducing in this referendum. That's not far-fetched. It's seriously a possibility, because we as a country may not be able to collect so much money to be able to cover the deficits that we are going to be having. And of course, with the current situation of the borrowing that we are also having, and I'm sure it's one of the issues that we are going to be discussing. Yep. Any government that comes in 2022 will find it a bit difficult to survive with a new constitution that looks to be more generous. Are we
not anticipating to have the same individuals that are in power today? In a way also occupying the next government, so to speak?
Whoever it is, it doesn't matter whether it is.
Why are they not keen to just save themselves from the hassle that is likely to come up?
No, well, I think His Excellency the President is not likely to be in power.
Not necessarily the president, not necessarily the president. I mean, we've seen the individuals that are always pushing to be, at the top of the helm. The people who probably criticize the current government, in terms of how it has handled matters, economy and all that. Why would they be interested to be at the top of the helm, knowing very well that it's going to be terrible, it's going to be a Pandora's box, it's going to be, extremely hard for them to handle matters finances?
That is what is confounding. It's perplexing for our leaders in this country, that they don't seem to be seeing way beyond their expectations for today. Because you look like, now I listened to Musalia Mudavadi yesterday trying to, very clandestinely bring the issue of the IMF loans, that we want to know how much has been borrowed and blah, blah, blah. And of course, he's not very sincere with what he's asking for, because if he is sincere, there is a way that he should be able to push the government to a certain direction. But for now, what seems to have blinded him is how he's going to get power in the coming year. And it doesn't seem to matter so much to him, even about the borrowing spree that we have in the country. It doesn't seem to matter to him so much about even the protection of the people who are having challenges with the lockdown that we are having in the 5 counties. Definitely what most of these political leaders are looking at today is how they can ascend to power, and then they somehow hope that once they have ascended to power and they have achieved a dream of their lifetime, because most of these people is not about servicing, it's not about service to their nation, it's not about patriotism, it's about achieving a lifetime dream of ascending to a certain position, so that when they die, we shall have good eulogies and tribute that we are going to give for them, or that we are going to do. And so for that reason, some of them just fantasize on how they will be president, prime ministers, deputy president, and such kind of position.
All right, Mheshimiwa, let's look at that first, and we'll be coming back after this break. I'll be coming with a bell, so at least we make sure that we balance time pretty well, so we all have that equal opportunity to weigh in our sentiments. So we take a quick break, and then we come back on the very same notes.
As the country gears up for possible BBI referendum and 2022 general elections.
As the salvos enter too familiar territory,
William Ruto will serve his 5 years term as the deputy president.
Pundits Night is here to give you powerful, thought-provoking political commentaries.
The mountain can produce a country.
Give Moses Kuria a chance to respond. Let me ask you this. Are you not taking advantage of first my situation?
You talk about the people with the ultimate power.
Kikuyus will vote for somebody from outside their community to be the next president of this country.
We talk to the newsmakers, the opinion shapers, and the pundits.
Fair enough. I believe
that part so that
As we dissect everything you need to know to make an informed decision. what's happening around you. Morning Cafe with heated political debates.
The position of the Prime Minister will go to a party with the most elected members.
I clearly know that neither Raila nor Ruto are in the work plan on the roadmap for transition as far as the government is concerned.
Informative health discussions, business, farming, Tasty Wednesday, Fitness Thursday, and Feel Good Friday with amazing DJs, celebs, and music bands.
Back to the seasons of my youth.
Every Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. Did you know that your business keeps our economy running?
You need the skill, not the papers.
Always tell yourselves, one day at a time. You can't do everything under one roof.
Over time, I've had to realize that good things take time.
The Grind, every Monday at 7:30 p.m. Before the markets open, farmers begin their day, each with a desire to produce the best. But how can they increase the numbers, maintain the standards,
Aitoi ile garlic inafaa itoi, that standard garlic.
reduce the cost,
We spread our risk.
and yet remain the best? Kilimo Diaries, every Sunday when the clock hits 7:30 p.m. Cut, chop, mix, steam, grill, fry. Only on the Throwdown, every Sunday at 6:30 p.m. Owning a home is a keystone to wealth. And building one can be quite daunting. Well, the Realtor gives you the do's and don'ts.
Some so many brokers in the market who just want to tell you I can be able to supply.
And groundbreaking.
So we clear the area and we set out the place where the house is going to be laid down.
We talk homes, land, and property.
With me, Currency Daniel.
Every Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. Next episode of Coffee with the Movie.
But today I'm with Bamboo, the African band too.
It's funny how the enemy uses ladies a lot.
I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah, but his statue, it looked like the angel of death or something like that, with a black robe and a skeleton and it's holding a pole.
Yeah.
With it's a sickle. It's
Catch this story every Sunday at 8 p.m. As the country gears up for possible BBI referendum and 2022 general elections,
As the salvos enter too familiar territory,
William Ruto will serve his 5-year term as the deputy president.
Pundits Night is here to give you powerful, thought-provoking political commentaries.
The mountain can produce a country.
they give Moses Kuria a chance to respond. Let me ask you this. Are you not taking advantage of first my situation?
You talk about the people with the ultimate power.
Welcome back. The hashtag is Morning Cafe at Linda_Lela TV47KE. We'd love to sample some of your feedback, so keep dropping them as we proceed with the broadcast. Still with me, Dr. Barak Muluka, who's a communications advisor and speaker of Nyeri County, that is Honorable John Kagushia. And so, Mheshimiwa, coming to you, Daktari, we speak of our constitution that is progressive. We speak highly of this constitution, but we equally speak of the loopholes that lie therein. And on numerous occasions, we've seen individuals trying to seek advisory. We've seen individuals trying to seek interpretation. Do you suppose then that this has become more of a cliche, that it is the best constitution, is the most progressive constitution across the world, and probably we've not even sat down to understand what is inculcated in it?
Okay, I'm not a student of constitutions, and therefore I may not pretend to know about the rest of the constitutions.
Do you suppose that we are hypocritical, that we all are pretending? Yes.
Okay. Let me continue with my train of thought.
Okay, all right.
My train of thought is that I may not know about other constitutions in the world, but I know about this constitution and the constitution that was there before, and roughly a bit about other constitutions, although I wouldn't claim to really know them in depth. And therefore, I leave out the element of the rest of the world. But if I just come back to our own context, this constitution has been hailed for a number of reasons. First is the separation of powers that it generates. There are very clear distinctions of in roles between the executive, the legislature, the judicature, and independent commissions and other authorities. It is very clear, although I keep on seeing the executive trying to stray into the spaces of other institutions. There is accountability that overrides everything else that we may want to say about this constitution, the Bill of Rights, which was not there before, the principles and values of leadership, which were not there before, devolution, matters of public finance, very clearly captured and explained in the constitution, and subsequently in supportive acts of parliament. And therefore, when you look at all these things, they give us a constitution that we can believe in. But I think our challenge, Linda, is that we are conflating things, mixing up issues, that we have had elections that have been troubled in the past. And because we have had elections that have been troubled in the past, there have been situations of violence around those elections, both before and after this constitution. And apparently, to remedy those conflicts, to address them, His Excellency the President and the Right Honorable former Prime Minister decide that they are going to make certain changes, and they are changes which start encroaching on the independence of institutions. You can see already we are having issues with the delineation of boundaries. You're already encroaching into the space of the IEBC. You can see we are encroaching into the space of the judiciary by introducing certain officials there to be appointed by the president. You can see that we are trying to diffuse the independence and separation of powers by also bringing the executive back into the legislature and a number of other areas. In fact, when the speaker talks about offending articles, I don't know whether those offending articles are in this constitution or in the bill that is proposed to amend their constitution. And therefore, I agree with the Speaker that people, at least some of them, are governing themselves by the desire to pave a way for themselves to power. And telling us that this is going to correct the violence that we have had before, which I don't think it can do. I have said before and I say it again. If you say that the executive will now have 5 state officers as that institution that we have called the presidency, which has had 2, and then you have the rest of the people in the cabinet. But if you are saying we are going to have 5 where we have had 2, nothing stops the country from going to a violent election if a certain party which has lined up its 5 presumed state officers gets the impression that the election has been stolen.
Right.
Those are things which you should have been addressing, and we have not addressed them.
Okay.
So, what are we curing? That question has never been answered. Whenever you ask it, they call you names and they tell you, let us meet at the debe.
But don't you agree then that, I mean, it's a process, it's dynamic in nature, and therefore if at one point then we'll feel like this has not been addressed, maybe someone will come up with a conversation and a better way, a better approach towards addressing the same.
Dynamism is about going forward.
Okay.
It is not about going backwards. When you go backwards, it's a regression. It's not dynamism, it is dysfunction. A dysfunction is some kind of function, but it is a function with negative results.
There's nothing within the BBI bill that speaks of us going forward?
There are certainly things that would allow us to go forward.
Then why not focus on them?
You can focus on them. You see, this is my breakfast this morning, and it's rather good. But if you drop in a droplet of poison, then you cannot tell me to focus on what is good in the cup.
All right. So in this case, all right, then we leave it at that. Speaking of which, the president the other day, and Right Honorable Raila Odinga, appearing before the public, trying to probably quell the fears that existed therein. That there were likelihoods of, this handshake note holding as expected, posing fears to this conversation of the BBI. Mheshimiwa, coming to you, what do you make of that event, even as we get into discussing the DP, his rules, and the fact that it appears as though he's been segregated, and it doesn't appear so because he has equally acknowledged that, the president has segregated him in a way. What do you make of this, and just what then does it speak about the politics of the day? Honorable Kagushia,
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, as I said before, there's quite a bit of an echo.
Did you get the question?
Yeah, the question, but there's quite a bit of an echo.
That should be fixed in a few.
Yeah, so as I said, we have the politicians today in our country who are largely focusing on how they are going to ascend to power. And that is, in fact, one of the challenges that we have with the people who seem to resist the BBI process. Because some people, the way they interpret the process is that it's not meant to give us a new constitution, rather it's supposed to make a road for certain individuals to coalesce together and then ascend to power in 2022.
The biggest question, the biggest individual then that would be speaking of is Right Honorable Raila Odinga, but some twists and turns cropping up now. Tough options for ODM over Raila 2022 polls bid. Opposition chief failed to beat March 31st application deadline, throwing the nomination process in a spin. I mean, just what card is he playing in particular?
I saw on breaking news last week that was a prank. It was on 1st April.
1st of April. No.
Yeah, that's what I saw on breaking news, that there was not such a process at all. It was actually a prank just to hoodwink Kenyans, because
but we all understand of the processes therein, and also we understand the timelines that have been set within the ODM. I mean, as much as we'd want to look at it as though it's an April Fool's affair, I mean, equally last week they said he had submitted his fee, that is the 1 million fee. So a lot of confusion that lingers here.
The truth of the matter is that ODM is Raila and Raila is ODM. So those are the issues of processes that you're talking about in ODM now, would not be anything more than a PR stunt.
Okay.
And just to try and confuse the public. And I know why this is happening is because of the handshake quagmire that we have been into for the last several weeks. If you look at the steps that have been taken, especially to kind of repair the challenges that the handshake has been facing recently, you realize that there is also something that this is meant to achieve. You saw Raila Odinga accompany His Excellency the President to inspect some projects in the city. Just a few days after Raila's men were up in arms about him being segregated as well.
Yeah.
Just a few days after he was seen to be out of this One Kenya Alliance arrangement, and he doesn't even seem to be the one who is spearheading that process. And it seems to be done out of his purview as a senior politician. And so that means that Raila has been elevated to the level of core principle, and in a way he has been removed from a grouping of the other politicians who want to ascend to power in 2022. And of course, this has been done in a very tactful manner, in a way that he is made to feel comfortable at some point, but at the same time, his people can actually feel the coldness, or they can feel that they're actually getting out of power slowly by slowly, even though the boss is enjoying the warmth of the state machinery at the top and the power politics that we are having in the country today. So Raila Odinga is trying to do some gymnastics with ODM, with his party, with the issues of nomination. Of course, me and you know that we are still way far from the process of nomination for political parties. And so today we can't be talking about presidential candidates for political parties. We are way ahead. I mean, we are way far from that process. Yeah, but I'm sure this is being done to achieve certain public relations ends, and especially to keep the public, who, especially those people who support ODM, probably a bit confused, or even a bit interested in what is going on in their party. So I think we as we talk today, the person who suffers that segregation mostly is the deputy president. And of course you can see his men and women are also not very comfortable with that, but they have kind of decided now to chart their way forward without the serious trappings of power, without the backing of His Excellency the President. And they look at the process of BBI as a process that is supposed to segregate His Excellency the Deputy President.
Is it so? Let's allow Barack come in on this one. Just what are the ramifications of President Uhuru Kenyatta making these moves that he's making? I mean, he has been very quick, or so to speak, to save the day in regards to the allegations that have been there, that there's a problem with the handshake. Well, the BBI is going to suffer a blow because there seems to be some level of segregation that has been leveled upon Right Honorable Raila Odinga. He has been very quick to save the situation. Probably different from what we witnessed when there were talks of the fact that Jubilee House is not in order. When we evidently can speak about a scenario where the president is trying to segregate the deputy president, that the BBI is coming in as a document that is set to segregate the deputy president, and equally we still have the same proponent speaking of a document that is supposed to unite the Kenyans. What do you make of that?
I sometimes laugh at these things,
yeah.
Linda, because basically we are supposed to be making laws for the country and to be reforming, if we want, the constitution for the country, not for Raila Odinga, William Ruto, Uhuru Kenyatta, but for Kenyans who will be in this space 30 years from now, 100 years from now, 200 years from now. That is where our focus should be. However, the political expediency is very clear and very obvious in this context, and therefore one has got to keep wondering about what is in this thing for the present generation of politicians. With regard to the trial of President Kenyatta, Raila Odinga, and William Ruto, the truth of the matter is that William Ruto was traded in for Raila Odinga in 2018.
Okay.
William Ruto was a special purpose vehicle for Uhuru Kenyatta. His role was to deliver the presidency, and he delivered it in 2013. He delivered it again in 2017. If when you talk to the insiders, they will tell you that before ODM and NASA went to the Supreme Court, His Excellency, the President, was already transformed. He had already started reading the Riot Act, and William Ruto was already being consigned to the place where he is today, because he was a spent cartridge, a spent magazine without any further value, because his role was to deliver the presidency. And having delivered it twice, he started being expended with. Unfortunately, there had to be a repeat election. So within the space of just under 5 years, William Ruto delivered the presidency 3 times. And after that, he belonged to the dustbin. But Raila Odinga had value. That value was, number one, that President Kenyatta required legitimacy. And Raila Odinga, as his foremost opposition opponent, had denied him that legitimacy by refusing to recognize him. So howsoever they got together, I do not know. They have never told us. They have only told us that they sat and looked at each other for hours, only taking tea and water. In the fullness of time, however, they reached some understanding. That understanding we will never know in great depth until the day one of them or both of them elect to open up. However, President Uhuru Kenyatta has had a good run. Where he lost Ruto, Odinga has been filling in the space. He has enjoyed peace. He has been able to legislate. They are able to whip the members of parliament from the two parties, sometimes through inducement, sometimes through intimidation, sometimes through persuasion. Whichever way it has worked. Now, if Raila Odinga starts talking about going to work with William Ruto, it starts becoming dangerous for His Excellency the President, even right now, leaving alone BBI, that they are going to make life difficult in Parliament. And the two of them are some of the best mobilizers in this country. Ruto has got quite a following within the legislature. Odinga has a following within the legislature. So it places His Excellency in a difficult place. He has got to tell Odinga, no, my brother, these things which you are saying me with One Kenya Alliance, forget about them. These are people I'm trying to just make happy. And you come, let us.
So the Excellency is better off with, is better off having an enemy in William Ruto as opposed to Right Honorable Raila Odinga.
Certainly, because William Ruto is encumbered.
Okay.
He finds it difficult, I have no doubt, to speak about certain things. He finds it difficult even to mobilize the MPs who are loyal to him, because they are essentially His Excellency the President's MPs. And the President has got the instruments of the party on whose ticket they were elected. He has got the state apparatus which has got dossier on them. He can persuade them, he can induce them, but he can also bully and intimidate them, and William Ruto can only look on. Raila Odinga, on the other hand, commands a legislative army that calls itself an army of cows. He can tell those cows to do whatever he wants, and the president would not like him to tell those cows to begin using their horns against him.
As powerful or as dangerous as it would be to have a Ruto-Raila, alliance, do you suppose they would be strong enough to get something at the top, get someone at the top of the helm when it comes to 2022? In terms of the numbers, in regards to the numbers, we understand how crucial the Mount Kenya numbers could be for someone to get to the top of the helm.
The dynamics of the moment are not known, and they would determine how things go. My reading of the situation is that Mount Kenya is a difficult space for Raila Odinga, and I think
not for Ruto. He can
perhaps for Ruto as well.
Yeah.
Mount Kenya is eventually friendly and predictable only when it is dealing with Mount Kenya. That is the only time you can trust it and say it's going to vote for this person.
Yeah.
Everyone else who tries to play their cards with Mount Kenya must approach it with a lot of caution. It is hardly bankable, except bankable by itself, to itself, and for itself. And therefore, anyone who is banking on that and saying this is the vote that will deliver my day, and they're from outside that area, should trade extremely carefully. And yet, it is very difficult to see how anybody is going to win this election without the support of the mountain. That is a conundrum that I cannot crack.
All right, well, and Mwishimi, we're coming back to you now that you brought on board the aspect of the DP. And let's briefly look at what his foot soldiers are talking about right now. They demand a COVID relief plan for the people who've adversely been affected by the latest, of course, move on what it is that was declared by President Uhuru Kenyatta, the lockdowns, the measures that have been set to deal with COVID-19 in the country. And the legislatures have asked the government to use the recently approved, that is about 257 billion loan from the International Monetary Fund to support the worst hit groups, especially small-scale businesses. I mean, as we combine all this conversation, there's so much that is in this particular statement, including that aspect of the IMF, and Kenyans are starting to petition online, seeking to have at least IMF reconsider that and say that it's not going to award Kenya these particular loans. What do you make of these statements coming from these, supporters of the DP? Are they genuine? Are they hypocritical? And do you suppose then that the government is in a position to, deliver what it is that they are demanding for? Will it be realistic, looking at what and where we are right now?
This is what Raila MP should be highlighting. Because members of parliament are supposed to be representing the public. Every member of the assembly, National Assembly or Senate, should be seen to be appreciating the challenges that the public is going through. And what I would expect is that the aspect of representation that comes on board when you go to the National Assembly should be seen more when Kenyans are in certain dilemmas. Today we are having this lockdown, which is not really a wish of any person. I'm sure even the president himself would not have been happy to bring about this lockdown. But you see, he had to do it based on the challenges that we are having in the country today with COVID.
Mm-hmm.
But then the first time we had this lockdown, we had quite a bit of measures that cushioned Kenyans, even though they did not achieve as much as they would have been expected, both sides, both on cushioning Kenyans and both on revenue-raising measures for the government. It would still be necessary for the politicians to be speaking for their people. And what I would challenge even the Tanga MPs or parliamentarians who talked, both the National Assembly and the Senate, what I would challenge them also is when they are talking, I would expect them to also come with some proposals on the table. Because when they do not bring proposals on the table, they might be seen like they are whining and they are just complaining. But because they are leaders and they are supposed to be providing solutions to our republic, they are supposed to bring some solutions, some proposals on the table, and even kind of demonstrate how they can be implemented. So that as much as you are asking of the government to take certain measures, you are also seen to be giving a certain direction, certain solutions as leaders, which then if they are implemented, Kenyans will have a relief. Of course, we have the challenge of the loans that have been proposed to be taken from IMF and other places. And I can clearly say that one of the reasons why Kenyans seem settled very well with IMF loans is because the IMF loans also come with very serious conditionalities. Mm-hmm. You remember the yesteryear's structural adjustment programs, the SAPs, that demanded of nationalization of the, not really nationalization, but privatization of national institutions, government selling its own companies. And who do they sell these companies to? If you are told to sell Kenya Power, if you are told to sell Kengen, who do you sell it to? You sell it to the same people who are lending you through the back door. So they kind of give you a loan, take over your institutions, and then still demand that you pay those loans with extremely high interest rates. Now, after they have done this, they demand of the country then to raise its taxation for members of the country so that they can be able to raise sufficient money to pay the loans. And of course, you know what that means. It comes to strangle the remaining life of the few businesses that survived COVID. The other thing that IMF loans do to a country is that these donors put a conditionality that we must be able to lay off certain workers who work for government. And this is so that we can have a lesser cost for running government. We raise taxes so that we can raise more money, so that we're able to handle and to pay for, the loans and the interest at a very high rate. All now, right. All these kind of approaches are what then leave people desperate. Families that lose their jobs, they get depressed. You have a country that then faces very serious mental issues because of the challenges that are caused by some of those loans. And then, of course, the other is where the loan is not properly utilized, especially when the loan is not used for the purpose in which it was taken. So those are some of the challenges that we are having. Okay. Having said all this, I would like to still congratulate the members of parliament who seem to be representing people by raising the issues that are affecting the people. And I believe that the national government, in its own wisdom, will somehow be able to come up with measures that are going to caution Kenyans that are affected largely by these problems. Here in the county, the governor has already come up with a few measures that are going to cushion the small-scale business people. Right. And something that I would also urge other governors to do, even at the county level, so that we have a better a business environment for our population.
Well, Yatani has defended the 255 billion shillings that is the loan coming from IMF. And yes, he speaks of some of the things that it is supposed to handle. He says that it will provide additional support to matters liquidity to small businesses to forestall a greater humanitarian crisis. He says also it will use the cash, which is probably the first batch, about 34.5 billion expected this week to support the next phase of COVID-19 response. So technically, I'd want to assume that the government, has well cut out strategies on how this is going to be used. But then again, the biggest issue that Kenyans have had is the fact that, yes, there's been regular borrowing, but then again, it's not been strategic. And we all agree that there's nothing wrong in borrowing. But then again, from what it is that we have witnessed before, we have not been the best of borrowers. One, we've not even been able to sustain the debt. And getting this money into the country, nothing much has happened to us, showing us that, yes, there's value for money, there's value for this particular debt that we are incurring. And we have a bill in Parliament, speaking of, managing the debt processes, that, well, members of Parliament acknowledge is lying somewhere therein, and nothing much is being done towards pushing it to sail through. Do you suppose that Kenyans really have a chance when they go out online, petitioning or calling upon the IMF to stop extending this particular loans? Do we really have a chance? Is there someone who can listen to us? Is it too late? Is there anything that can be done out of this?
I think the IMF has had the voice of Kenya, or Kenyans, or some Kenyans, and it is up to the IMF to consider what it wants to do with what it has had. But IMF negotiates not with Kenyans as citizens, it negotiates with the government of Kenya. And once it decides that this is where we are going, it can only note the protests. In any event, the Bretton Woods institutions are domiciled in places where expression of public discontent is part of the order of society. People will demonstrate not just online, they will go out in the streets and picket and steal what they have determined they want to do. They will go on and do. Having said that, what do I think of this debt? First, if you have a problem that requires money, you have got to find money and use it to solve the problem. It does appear like we have a problem that requires money, and we must find money. Either we will borrow it, or if we have something in our reserves, we will use it. We don't seem to have anything in our reserves. Some people, when they are so minded, they will even steal. We have a problem here, and government has gone out, it has looked for money, it has found money, and it wants to address that problem. Our focus now, I think, rather than saying we don't want any more money, should be calling for accountability. I am disturbed as Barack that we are borrowing more money at a time when we have been seeing people appearing before Parliament, and they are saying things like, I was just passing outside KEMSA, then I walked in and I got a tender worth 325 million Kenya shillings. I do not know who the signatories to my bank account are, who the directors to this company are. In other words, these are monies which often get to the country and end up in individual pockets.
Let's be honest for a moment, Barack. Just how positive can we be that we are likely to have accountability? Let's get ourselves back to August the 26th, 2020, when President Uhuru Kenyatta declared that he awards these investigative bodies 21 days to come up with answers as to the KEMSA scandals. Fast forward.
It's because we are a very pliant citizenry. Part of the problem is, of course, ethnic. Part of the problem is that we have remained a one-party state. We are a one-party state, Linda, in the guise of a multi-party democracy. Because you see all these people who call themselves the opposition trooping to President Uhuru Kenyatta. They want him to endorse them. How can you want the sitting president to endorse you to take over him when you belong to a different party and you are the leader of that party. Let us not lie to ourselves. For a short while, we seemed to be a multi-party democracy, but now we are a one-party state. I'm not even saying a one-party democracy. I'm choosing my words very carefully. We are a one-party state that is disguised as a multi-party democracy, and therefore we are not able to hold the government to account. Everybody who would express their voice against absence of accountability, against misrule, finds it expedient to keep quiet because they are still waiting for that endorsement, for that anointment. Others are multiple serial sinners who have sinned against the state and against the public, and the state has got a lot of dossier on them, which they can be called anytime, and they can be asked, have you been to Kiambu Road? Has Kiambu Road talked to you? Of course, we know who sits on Kiambu Road. Yeah. Have the DCI talked to you as the director of public prosecutions talked to you? So when you are in that state and you also have muzzled civil society, where you have not muzzled them, you have co-opted them into government, where you have invited the principal opposition leader into a co-presidency, that when he begins sulking, you have to drive to his house to appease him. There can be no accountability. There will be no accountability for the time being, and Kenyans are going to be pushed up to the wall until the day they are going to behave like a rat that has been pushed against the wall. Kwa sababu even panya ukimsukuma mpaka kwa ukuta atakuwa mkali. And that day is still far. Kenyans will still follow President Kenyatta and his government because they are Kikuyu. They will still follow Raila Odinga because they are Luo. They will still follow Mudavadi because they are Luya. They will still follow William Ruto because they are Kalenjin. And all these are the issues that are making it difficult for us to move forward, and the political leadership takes us for granted, as it should.
Mheshimiwa, to you, we genuinely need these loans. We genuinely need these monies, one, to service ourselves, to sustain the budget as it stands, because we're not able to generate such amounts. In a scenario where we equally, highlight all the problems that we have, and we get to a point where we acknowledge we still have a long way to go in terms of solving these particular problems. Don't you then think that Kenyans are justified to say, you know what, do not even give us the money?
Yeah, I don't know why you say we genuinely need loans. I don't know what information you have about us genuinely needing the loans. Because sometimes it's good to try as much as possible and live within your means, and reduce the loans that you can be able to borrow. And I know there's an urge by the national government to try and achieve so much within the remaining period of time, which is good. But then probably we as we negotiate for the loans, if as you put it, if we genuinely need these loans, as we negotiate for the loans, probably we need to look at better ways of getting this money, not the tougher way of getting the money. Because if you go to the Bretton Woods institutions, they come with very serious conditionalities, which sometimes harm the economy instead of correcting the problem that is there. Of course, I've seen the central bank governor talk about they are looking at avoiding the credit vulnerabilities that are likely to come if they don't raise money. And in a way, they try to make a case. But we could still, for example, sit with a country. Now we don't seem to be in the good books of the United Kingdom as we are flexing muscles, which something I really like, and I want to congratulate the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the health docket because of also telling off UK in these kind of circumstances, and of course. I'm sure it's also likely to have some repercussions on us because we still are so dependent on them. But if we wanted loans, I think we still could negotiate for some loans with some of the countries. We could negotiate loans even with the countries that are selling a lot of abroad. And we have better conditions that we can be able to negotiate, that we can be able to have control over. Because some of these loans are coming from IMF and all that other Bretton Woods institutions. They are not very friendly countries, to the African countries, so to say. So the other thing is when this the issue of accountability, as Dr. it comes into fore. Are we going to be accountable? If you're having, if you're taking, for example, we are getting 35 billion within this week. Yeah. Are we going to have accountability for this money? Or is it going to again end up in people's pockets, like it was the case with the first KEMSA saga? Can you imagine in that saga we are told that there's some people who are bidding for up to 4 billion worth of projects, and then they do not deliver. And you can imagine if you're talking of 45 billion, and you have one person taking 4 billion with them, how many people then do you need to take home this money? And then a lot of genuine business people who did supply some of the items were not paid. And how much money then ended up, we borrowed then, how much money ended up in the devolved units? Because the health docket is being handled in the devolved units. How much money went to the counties? How many ICUs were bought using this money? How many oxygen tanks were bought or were done using this money? How many oxygen plants were done using this money? Okay. And how many health practitioners did we even train to use those facilities? And the truth of the matter is, not so much of this money trickled down to the devolved units where the health docket is supposed to be handled. And of course, when you look at also the money that is going to Treasury to be able to cushion Kenyans in terms of business people, we still have very serious outcry from the businessmen and businesswomen as far as the issue of cushioning is concerned in terms of the businesses that they are doing, because the taxes seem to have gone back to where they were before, and this is regardless of these monies that came to help in that aspect. So that is where the issue of us genuinely needing these loans come to fore. And that is where we need to interrogate and to ask harder questions so that the national government and our treasury can be able to know that Kenyans are awake, Kenyans are looking at what is happening, and Kenyans demand to be explained to why do we genuinely need these loans, and how are we going to use these loans, and what about the conditionalities that come with these loans. So those are
we are still waiting for the SGR report from President Uhuru Kenyatta, who promised that he's going to give Kenyans that report so we can get to understand what the arguments were like, between Kenya and China. But we've not been lucky enough to get that. So, then we ask ourselves just how genuine and how possible is it for us to get some of these reports and for Treasury to come out and outline really.
I was reading something on there's someone who forwarded to me something on WhatsApp that was talking about a dead horse. And this dead horse, they were saying in the ancient times, once you had a dead horse, the prescription was bury the horse, declare the horse dead and bury it. But in the modern days, once a horse is dead, you now form a committee to investigate how can hopefully improve the performance of this dead horse. Sometimes you even be happy and thank God that the dead horse is going to be cost-free, is going to be consuming less, so it's not going to have a lot of costs. So I think that's exactly what we are having with some of these investigations. You have a scandal, it is known who has taken what, it is known, it has happened. And instead of taking action, we form a committee to then go and investigate how we can improve the performance of the dead horse. And with that, that's how we have found ourselves 1 year down the line without any report on KEMSA. We have found ourselves down the line without any report on the SGR. And we have, several years down the line. And we have so many pending investigations because we are forming committees to try and kind of buy time so that we can forget about it. And of course, another thing will come up, another scandal will come up, we'll discuss it, and we'll not have anyone being prosecuted, unfortunately. And that's where we would ask the men that Dr. Barak is mentioning on Kiambu Road, they need to come to action, and we see them being able to take action on small fish, not on people who are the beneficiaries or the people who are conveyor belt, but the real culprits.
All right, Mheshimiwa, let's drop that one. Allow me to drop that one and get to this one that he speaks about, that it was a good move that Kenya picked after, it hit out at the United Kingdom after London added the East African community of this particular country into the coronavirus travel red list. Shots fired. Do you suppose then, one, there was mischief in this move by the United Kingdom, and what could have informed that? And equally, is Kenya picking a war or a fight while the gun is loaded?
Well, Linda, I'm not aware that my country and the United Kingdom could be quarreling over something that has not been made public, and that things like the ban, the travel or entry ban that we are hearing of with respect to our country, that it could be a disguise for a quarrel that could be happening, unless that quarrel is happening within certain hidden chambers that we are not aware of. As a Kenyan citizen, I feel slighted, of course, that we should be denied entry into any space. We ought to have made our country the very best, such that we are the ones who are telling people don't come into this space. I have seen, of course, that we are trying to put in place certain retaliatory measures, telling them that we will also not fly there, and we will also quarantine your citizens when they should come here over such and such periods. So I do not know. I have also seen that we are having another spat with the United States over ARVs that arrived in the country a while back, and they are at the port, and the government of Kenya is asking that whoever is bringing them into the country should pay tax, regardless that there are people out there whose lives are in danger, and that the United States has done what it has done because of the things that are happening at KEMSA, and which we are all aware of. And so they are saying we want to follow this up to their logical end. We don't want them ending up in some dubitable hands. The world, the entire global community is in the grip of a deadly pandemic, and everyone is securing their space. In this country, we failed to secure our space, even to do very basic things like wearing of masks, washing of hands, keeping of distance. If we can say that we don't have money to buy masks or money to buy soap, or we don't have water, just respecting that social distance, we have refused to do that. It has forced His Excellency the President to place the whole country under lockdown. Of course, we are saying it is 5 counties, but we know very well that when Nairobi sleeps, the whole country.
Nairobi, Nakuru, Kiambu.
Yeah.
The key.
Yes.
drivers.
When they doze, the rest of the country sleeps.
Right.
Yeah. So we have taken such measures, and it is within that context that we must ask ourselves, why have we been placed on this list?
Okay.
And we are not the only ones. I think just now there are almost 40 countries that the UK has put on that list.
So are we reading too much into this?
Absolutely. Let us ask ourselves, what is it that we have not done? Because the numbers have been rising astronomically from about 2% at the start of this year, or say 5%, to upwards of 22%. In some places like my home county of Kakamega, where we try to flatter ourselves with the belief that we are safe, it is probably now upwards of 40%, according to official statistics. Now, from 40%, it's very easy for it to move to 80%. You just multiply by a factor of 2, and it's 80%. Who is going to allow you into their space? Let us put our house in order.
But just what is wrong in us getting more vaccine, so to speak, that has been approved by the Poisons Board, and getting them into the country, the few who can afford, proceed and afford. What is wrong with that? That the government has to go to levels of banning this vaccine from getting into the country, if at all this is going to come in handy to address the global menace that we are fighting?
I have not quite understood the
That is the
details,
Sputnik.
the details of the challenges, but I decipher that it has got the fingerprints of a big boys intra-club conflict and competition. That how are you the one who has brought this into the country? I was reading a book somewhere. It is titled Tales of the D'Urbervilles.
What?
By Tales of the D'Urbervilles.
All right.
Yeah,
I'll get that later. Yes.
You should read it. It was written by Thomas Hardy, one of the giants of English literature.
I will.
Yeah. Okay. He lived at the same time as Charles Dickens.
Okay.
But we can talk about that afterwards.
Right.
Anyway, I was reading that book, and towards the end of this very tragic novel, Hardy posits that we are like flies to wanton children, to wanton boys. They kill us for their sport. And we Kenyans, Kenyan citizens, we are like flies. When we are placed before the politicians, we are like flies. They kill us for their sport.
Okay.
For their sport. You've seen little boys when they are playing games, they say, I've killed 5, I've killed 10.
And they're very happy
they
and proud.
Put them aside and they count to see who has killed how many. That is where we are with this political class, and we are willing victims because we have accepted to be held hostage by them. We suffer from the Stockholm syndrome, where we may not like slavery, but don't we love the slave master?
Sadly. All right, Mheshimiwa, close it for us.
When it comes to the issue of the steps that Kenya has taken against the UK, I fully support, because we have this challenge of COVID much more elaborate in the UK than it is in Kenya. We have variants that are presenting in Kenya today, most of them originating from UK and South Africa. And so the burdens we are carrying today, even when we are reaching the 40%, 20%, is truly not a problem of our own making. Is a problem that is coming even from the UK itself. And for some time now, that had been understood. And Kenya, having taken steps which are correct towards, at least as a government, having taken steps that are corrective in nature in terms of handling the COVID situation, it was expected really that UK ought to have involved the country a little bit much more when it came to the steps that would be taken to ensure that you have as fewer people as possible entering their country when they are positive. The same has happened to their citizens in Kenya.
Right.
And so when Kenya flexes its muscle and shows that it's also getting to a place where it can also use diplomacy to protect itself and its citizens, I think it's a good move. It's something that I want to congratulate the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and also the health docket for. So for me, as a student of diplomacy, is something I laud, something I am happy about. And I think we need to do this a little bit more with other countries, including China. And why I'm happy about that move is because eventually what this means is that as a country, we're also going to behave. We are not going to surrender ourselves and our sovereignty to the hands of other nations so easily, such that we cannot be able to raise a voice when we are stepped on. So to me, is a responsible move.
Mheshimiwa, as we close, I mean, honestly, I don't know why Barack is laughing. With a little history that I have read, I really much remember that these were our colonizers, and the songs that were sung then, the 10-year, Hail the Queen, they rule forever.
I've been hearing this kind of rhetoric.
In 30 seconds here.
I've been hearing this kind of rhetoric for at least 5 decades. Let's put away the first decade of my life. But for at least 5 decades, I've been hearing this kind of rhetoric about our sovereignty, about flexing our muscles. And these are muscles that are in atrophy. They mean absolutely nothing to the United Kingdom. It's like we are punching the wall and it doesn't mean anything. And Mheshimiwa misleads himself and misleads Kenyans when he says that the situation in the UK is more acute than the situation here. What metrics have we used? We do not even have the instruments of measurement to go out to determine that this is the extent of the incursion of this bug in society. If you look at all these places where they are announcing these big numbers, you can see that they have the mechanisms of establishing where the problem is. We should be embarrassed to the extreme when we look at ourselves and ask ourselves why we cannot correct these things. We have got the Kenya Medical Research Institute here, KEMRI. What does it do? Is it a pseudo research institute? We have educated people, we have taken them to universities, to schools of medicine, we have taught them biochemistry up to doctorate levels and postdoctoral. Professor John Kokwaro was one of the people I first saw getting a postdoctoral degree in Kenya, and his area was research in medicinal plants of Africa. What are these institutions doing? Why should we be looking up to India, to the UK, looking up to people to donate to us vaccines? Where is all this science that I used to hear a lot of people talking about when I was a young man in school? People were telling us study sciance subjects.
And therefore we cannot justify
they can't
that
bring anything.
The numbers are lower.
Where's Professor Arthur Obel and the people he has trained in biotechnology, that we start saying UK this, America that, India that. Shame on us.
Well, gentlemen, allow me to close. Mheshimiwa, we cannot go further than that. It's exactly 8, and we have another recording that is set to play, and therefore that means we can reserve this conversation or more of the same for next week. So make sure that you are here next week on Monday. You will be here. All right, thank you. And make sure that you're here. Mheshimiwa, on Monday.
Yeah, I will be there.
Thank you so much for that. We close it at that. Dr. Barak Muluka, Communications Advisor, and Speaker, Nyeri County, Honorable John Kagushi. Asante sana for that. We cross over to a different conversation altogether on the ramifications or the effects of COVID-19 on a different world altogether. That is on clearing and forwarding after this break.
As the country gears up for possible BBI referendum and 2022 general elections,
As the salvos enter too familiar territory,
William Ruto will serve his 5-year term as the deputy president.
Pundits Night is here to give you powerful, thought-provoking political commentaries.
The mountain can produce a country.
give Moses Kuria a chance to respond. Let me ask you this. Are you not taking advantage of first my situation?
You talk about the people with the ultimate power.
Kikuyus will vote for somebody from outside their community to be the next president of this country.
We talk to the newsmakers, the opinion shapers, and the pundits.
Fair enough. I believe
that part so that I don't
Terrorism.
As we dissect everything you need to know to make an informed decision. How well do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates.
The position of the Prime Minister will go to a party with the most elected members.
I clearly know that neither Raila nor Ruto are in the work plan on the roadmap for transition as far as the government is concerned.
Informative health discussions, business, farming, Tasty Wednesday, Fitness Thursday, and Feel Good Friday with amazing DJs, celebs, and music bands.
Back to the seasons of my years.
Every Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. Did you know that your business keeps our economy running?
You need the skill, not the papers.
Always tell yourselves, one day at a time. You can't do everything under one roof.
Over time, I've had to realize that good things take time.
The Grind, every Monday at 7:30 p.m. Before the markets open, farmers begin their day, each with a desire to produce the best. But how can they increase the numbers, maintain the standards,
Aitoe ile garlic inafaa itoe, that standard garlic.
reduce the cost,
We spread our risk.
and yet remain the best? Kilimo Diaries, every Sunday when the clock hits 7:30 p.m. Cut, chop, mix, steam, grill, fry. Only on the Throwdown, every Sunday at 6:30 p.m. Owning a home is a keystone to wealth.
Well, clearing and forwarding agencies or agents act like an intermediary. As a matter of fact, they are between a shipper, border control, customs authorities, and other logistic providers. And it comes to matters of chain supply and logistics. Clearing and forwarding agents have proved to be vital and very, very important parts of chain supply logistics. But just how have they been affected at this point of COVID-19? We have had this conversation. That was sometimes last year. And I know, as though we hoped that things are going to be better, it will be changing when it comes to 2021. Looks like the scenario is getting even uglier. Well, this based on how these other logistic providers have been hugely affected, and therefore it is pertinent that we have a conversation revolving around this as we seek to understand what policies need to be brought on board, what needs to be done to cushion this sector that has hugely been affected. And joining us for that conversation is Maina Wayangline, a household name when it comes to matters clearing and forwarding, and therefore he sits here in his capacity to just tell us his experience and the experience of the scenario right now. The other day we saw that ship, or that stuck somewhere in Egypt's Suez Canal. I mean, it has been pulled free, but questions are asked as to just how much of losses this has registered. And so you can imagine if that probably stayed there for a week has cost this particular sector hugely, then what of a scenario where things have literally gone to a standstill courtesy of COVID-19? Freight forwarding, a significant profit declines with containers full of merchandise awaiting an unclear date of normalization of international traffic. Good to have you, sir.
Pleasure.
And I'm sure I have spoken of so much fear. Is there any tenet of hope when we speak about this aspect of shipping?
There's hope. For the last few days, we've experienced some challenges.
All right.
But thank God that there's been some intervention from the government.
Mm-hmm.
But looking at the issues relating to clearing and forwarding, remember that clearing and forwarding is a holistic business. Is a chain connector between the producer and the final consumer.
Yeah.
And it actually encompasses various sectors, logistic sectors, which include air, sea, road, and air, sea, road, and even rail transport system.
Mm-hmm.
So if any of this supply chain is disrupted, you tend to have a trickle-down effect which goes down to various lines of business.
Yeah.
And any delays on the same will affect various sectors, including households, jobs, and all that. So yes, we have been affected adversely because the products that have been produced in various parts of the country that needs to be shipped to the world,
mm-hmm.
and are taking quite some time before they are taken there because of Gotv and all that. When it comes to import, the number of containers that are coming into the country has significantly declined because most clients either are not able to foot the bill, or the demand is not there, or there has been a delay in movement of ship or vehicles and all that. So yes, there has been a lot of effect on the same, and we hope that things are going to improve.
You know, for the longest of time, we really have been trying to strike a balance on, the exports and the imports on numerous occasions. And I think I've had a conversation with you before where we're looking at how, yes, it becomes easy and there's so much of export that is coming into the country as opposed, imports that are coming into the country as opposed to exports going out into the different parts. And, as a country, there's been that need and urge for us to do lots of production, to get into points of surplus, and also having the chance to go and export our products to the other countries. I can imagine that this is even worse at this particular point when we're speaking of how imports are, the sector has been hugely affected. What of the exports?
We, as the country, as Kenya, export tea, coffee, cut flowers, human resource, research products, and other items in large quantity.
Yeah.
Last year we did an export of around 6.5 billion US dollars worth, and we did an import of 17.2 billion US dollars. So you can imagine the difference between now the import and exports.
Yeah.
There has been a concerted effort to try and balance and close that gap with regards to our exports. And we can see, we hope that various sectors that are coming into play, including Chamber of Commerce, Export Processing Council, and Horticultural Development Authority, when they come together, they'll try and bring that gap closer.
Okay.
We import a lot from China. Last year, for example, we did that 22% of all our imports are from China. And this year we are likely to do lesser, less than that because of those factors that I've highlighted before. And it's our hope that as the government will, as the country, we are going to learn from this pandemic so that we further nurture our exports for the sake of balancing our shilling as well. At the same time, creating more business and creating more jobs in our local industry. There's something that we have not done as a country, and that's exploiting the potential of this country. I keep on saying that this country has so much potential in terms of what we can produce and what we can export. What we have lacked is the will to go down there and exploit our viazi, our roots, exploit our pyrethrum, exploit our even live animals. So we need to rethink about the same.
Is that to say then we fall short in the line of exports simply because we've not tapped into what it is that we have as a country? Not because there is existence of this produce or these products that we're talking about, just that there's some difficulties in other countries buying them.
Compared to other countries like Tanzania and even countries like Norway, we are lethargical in our approach to business of exports. And if as a country we can focus on business of exports, this country can go very far. Our shilling cannot experience some volatility. Right now it's around 114 against the US dollar.
It's still stronger than the Tanzanian one and the Ugandan one that you spoke
Let's not
about.
compare ourselves with the weak people. Let's compare ourselves with a big economy.
All right.
So that we can aim higher.
Get better,
Yeah. So I can say that if you're able to focus more on SMEs and support the people on the ground, support our products. We exploit them, cashew nuts, macadamia, those unique products that can have high demand in out of the country, yet we are not exploiting them. This country can change in terms of economy. I'm sure the participation of export industry can really trigger up our GDP. Last year we did around 5%, and I'm sure this year, because of the changes of all that COVID and the effect of other factors, we're going to do around 3%, and that's
3% of what, of the GDP?
The GDP.
Okay.
Yeah. So the whole country GDP.
Okay.
And the contribution of exports is a one fundamental area that we have not tapped. And I keep saying that if you're able to tap that sector will go very, very far. Yeah.
All right, there's a huge difference now that we speak about the GDP and we speak about the imports and what it is that we've shipped in and out. I mean, is it evident that it has gone way below after COVID-19?
Yes, it has. That's why I said now we are likely to even import less because one, our shilling has become weaker.
Yes.
Secondly, our buying power is has coming down. At the same time, there has been some interference with the chain of logistics. Now, imports from say Britain to Nairobi it has been affected. It's been delayed. So we are likely to get lesser in terms of our ability to have stronger muscles. Yeah.
All right. In most cases, then one would want to argue that while the pandemic caught almost everyone flat-footed, we probably did not envision this. Some of these superpowers, these countries that we speak about, countries that we import from, I know had set up ways of probably cushioning them. It's just that it's a bit more straining than expected. Do you suppose as a country we had set ourselves up for such an occurrence, or this caught us totally flat-footed, and therefore are there lessons that we pick that in the event that such plays out again in terms of pandemics or any catastrophe, then we would be better positioned?
This country has so much potential in terms of policies. There's good policies on the papers.
Yeah.
A friend of mine told me there's a division in Western that has around 100 professors in one division.
Yes.
Yet when it comes to implementing the development factor, that's not seen. So we need to move from the papers to actualization of what you're supposed to do. I expect right now the government to move VAT from 16 to 14. I expect fuel not to be 122.8. I expect it to be around 118 or at most 117 compared to other countries and compared to what our resources are. So I expect a new policy, an immediate new policy, so that a common mwananchi has been is cautioned against that's in quotes exploitation. Most people have lost their jobs. Almost 75% of labor has been affected directly or indirectly. Either some of them have been have lost their jobs, either some of them have the salary has been cut by half, or some of them have been told to come back after 3 or 2 months. So the effect is far reached. There are some small things that do play when it comes to economy. I'm not an expert in the Kenyan economy though, but let me give an example of what Machakos County did. Removing some bills, removing some taxes has far-reaching effect when it comes to the common mwananchi, so that it can also be cautioned against the effect of COVID-19. Yeah.
Okay, let's extend this further. Before then, we come to what it is that a Young Lion does and how you are staying afloat at this particular moment.
Yeah.
I don't know whether this would be in line with the conversation, but I'd love for you to probably tell me, because I'd want to believe that involves all this logistics that we speak about in terms of, provision of services of chain supply. And the Suez Canal scenario that played out should have been last week.
Yes, early this week.
Early this week, yes, early this week.
Yeah.
It was around the weekend, waking into this week. And lots of questions have come up as to just how Africa is prepared for such occurrences. Africa is always, on the lookout for such, and how best they can be able to handle it. And I don't know whether this should be looked at as an African problem, or so to speak, because if the other places had, interest in this particular one, and I want to believe they do, then at least they would have come in handy towards solving the scenario. The container, the ship that's stuck in Egypt's Suez Canal, has officially been pulled free, but it's really taken a while. And I was just listening to how experts were arguing on the losses that would be registered on this. What would be your take on this one? What do you make of it, and what does it mean on how prepared we are as a continent in such of occurrences, and how we get to handle them? And importantly, if such are losses that have been registered in just about a week or two, then how more are the losses on matters COVID-19?
You see, COVID-19 itself, few of us, or none of us foresaw that disaster coming. We never expected the ever given ship to be stuck in Suez Canal. We should always be prepared for the worst as the world. This also, as I said initially, it has affected both Africa and even Europe, because as a result of that ship being stuck there, it delayed the production of some items, it delayed delivery of some products, it even caused some job losses. There's also demurrage and all that. We also need to think as an African continent in terms of what alternative source of transport logistics can we have in case of anything. What would we need to have? It's always good to have a plan B. There's that aspect of Africa having the so-called free trade area is a positive thing. But as we think about free trade area, which is actually going to open up the African continent in terms of trade as a whole, we should also think of in terms of what can we do in case of a disaster such occurs. So it's our time. We went back to our drawing board. It's our time as an African. We went back to think, what next can we do? And we bring it back home to this country. We should also think of the extreme part, as a situation where, for example, if we have a challenge between us and Somali, and remember our flights go through Somali and some part of Djibouti. So what else can we do? What other route can we have? Because it happens, it can happen, it may happen. So let's think outside the box.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's come to Young Lion in particular. What are the major processes in terms of duty do you conduct? And just how huge has this become, lower or more, in as much as you can say there's not much money that is in circulation. Sometimes the duties become more based on, an extension of how much the scrutiny needs to be done, and so much so.
Young Line has been this business of clearing and forwarding for over 20 years now, and we are proud to say that we are one of the major logistic companies in this country that have played a big role in building the economy of this country.
Yeah.
When it comes to exports, for the last 1 year, 2020, 2019, we did a value of around 200 million worth of exports. That was just our own part of it. Otherwise, when it came to merging with other companies and other airlines, we did about 800 to 900 million. 2020, we did lower than that. We did around 400 million. And 2021, we are foreseeing a situation where, unless this cap is lifted, we might do lower. When it comes to clearing of containers in Mombasa, we did 680 containers last year. This year we expect it to be lower unless things change.
Okay.
So, but we are ready to expand. We are also trying our level best to be on afloat, because this is a situation that takes us back to our drawing board, and we rethink of what else can we do, what can we do better for the sake of remaining afloat. Because as a result of this, as I said, so many companies have closed, and you realize that if you're not cautioned against such a situation, we are likely also to close our doors.
Yeah. A lot of learning are, of course, happening at this particular point, courtesy of the challenges that we witnessed today. So how then best can one say you'd handle them to stay afloat, more so on the aspect of security, and just how then do you get to make sure that everything is secured, everything is running well, you still maintain the confidence of the clients that worked with you at some point in time? I mean, after all, some could have closed down, but who knows? They would probably get back. How do they then say that we go back to this individual that we once worked with?
When it comes to my company, Young Line, we are happy to say that we are the only company in this country, logistic company in this country, that has agreement with all airlines.
Yeah.
That's one niche that we beat all other clients in the field.
Okay.
I mean, other companies in the field. At the same time, we are the lowest. We offer the lowest rates in terms of air freight. So that gives us an edge against other companies. At the same time, our logistics chain has been so seamless that when we experience any challenge, we're able to tackle it there and then. We don't believe in delaying solution, but we believe in tackling a situation as it occurs. So that's one of the areas that has made us stay afloat. At the same time, we have diversified. Initially used to specialize in air freight. Now we have gone to road transport.
Okay.
At the same time, we have improved our clearing, container clearing in Mombasa. So that's an area that we are looking at, and so that it can also cushion us against unseen circumstances. So we have also trained staff. We are continuously training our staff so that they can cope with the situations as it were. One of the major things that we are doing that other people are not doing, and I'm proud to say that we are now partnering with counties within this country. We realize that there's so much potential with the counties in this country, where we will liaise with CECs of trade with various counties, and we are able to exploit whatever they have specifically for exports. So we have incubation centers all over the country, so that you can also exploit whatever is being produced on the ground, ranging from fish, fishing flies, handicrafts, Maasai sandals, and all that. And they are all spread across the country. I can also, I'm proud to say that some counties have taken us as their prime exporters. Let me give an example. Murang'a County, we are now handling their coffee all over the world, and it's becoming a plus with them, because that's an extra income they used not to have, and they are directly getting it. So that's a plus.
All right, that's good. Yeah. Speaking of which, handling, that one for Murang'a and other counties, then, as I said, I'm going to have this, sometimes I go on my social media, I say I'm going to have a talk with someone in this line, and, would just want to hear some of the questions that people would ask. And one of them asks, then, can you as exporters, or, a shipping company or an export company, also proceed to order goods before someone, have them come and cleared and every process is done on behalf of a client?
The license we have from the Kenya Revenue Authority allows us to, one, pay duty on or behalf, requested to by the client, to pay duty for client's products, process or move the cargo from airport to wherever the client is when it comes to imports.
Okay.
We also are allowed to repackage all the products that the clients have. However, on special requests, we order goods on behalf of our clients. Like, for example, most clients order cars from us as Young Line. You say, you give us specification of the car, we give you options. Then we sold the car, say from Japan. We pay for the car, the cost, insurance, and freight from Japan, say Nagoya, for example. We ship it from there. We bring it to Mombasa. We clear for you. We pay duty for you. We pay the CFS, that is freight terminals fee and all that. Other duties are thereon, and we deliver the car to your door. So those are the areas that we have we have also looked at, and we are giving door-to-door service from wherever the product is, say in Japan to Nairobi or to your door. The other thing you are doing when it comes to export is that we are picking your products from your house. We package them where they are, say on site. We deliver them to JKIA airport. We process all the documentation. We pay all the duty where applicable. We uplift the goods to the destination. We clear the destination. For example, say for example you're taking a cargo to in Germany, something like Frankfurt. We deliver in Frankfurt. We clear them there. We deliver to your consignee at the destination. So that's the whole chain that we are doing right now.
I'm curious to ask, what are the advantages of that? I know the charges then become more for an individual, or maybe you'd probably tell us otherwise. So when one gets into such an agreement with you, does it shorten the time? Does it make it more expensive, or slightly?
Partnered with insurance companies that do insure our products. We have also partnered with the airline who insure our products, so that in case of any loss, damage, or otherwise, the products are taken care of.
Is this standard across in most cases?
Not as Norway or Stockholm, Sweden. Scrutiny it's one thing that we cannot compromise on. When it comes to security of our products, we normally don't compromise on such a thing, because the Kenya Airport Authority has put in place various scrutiny areas or scrutiny machine, or even the police there and security agency there are on foot to make sure that everything that is being sent out of the country, or anything that's being imported from anywhere to this country is of the best quality and is of the right item. Yeah.
Well, they call it a very complicated field to venture into with lots of murky waters. Then one of them asked, how does one get into this business? Would you give them that advice?
Young Line has tried to demystify the issue of clearing and forwarding. Remember, in the early 80s, there was no policies, there was no ways of streamlining the clearing and forwarding world. In the early 90s, there are so many companies that came up because there was a misconception, which I call a fallacy, that clearing and forwarding is a field that is full of money, and the guys who are there normally are not the learned people. Okay, we went to school, we went to universities, we have masters, we have our PhDs. That is no longer the case now.
That needs to be made clear, right?
Yeah, I'm proud to say that I've done my master's in the University of Nairobi.
I mean, the way you're articulating the issues can evidently speak.
Yeah. So one thing that we need to demystify is that clearing and forwarding is not that complicated.
Yeah.
It's a very easy thing, so long as you're able to follow the right procedure. Say, for example, you're starting a company, a clearing and forwarding company. You need to have the correct papers. The correct papers include the training on the field. The directors have to have good contact. You have to be crime-free. You have to show that you've done your VAT returns and other returns appropriately per year. You also have to have a physical location. At the same time, you have to demonstrate that you are someone who is not cheeky.
Yeah.
When it comes to paying duty and other things related to the client, you pay to the latter. So it's not very complicated. So it's quite an easy feel.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of which, then, as easy as it may be, and as important or vital as it may be.
The country gears up for possible BBI referendum and 2022 general elections.
As the salvos enter too familiar territory,
William Ruto will serve his 5-year term as the deputy president.
Pundits Night is here to give you powerful, thought-provoking political commentaries.
The mountain can produce a country.
they give Moses Kuria a chance to respond. Let me ask you this. Are you not taking advantage of first my situation?
You talk about the people with the ultimate power.
Kikuyus will vote for somebody from outside their community to be the next president of this country.
We talk to the newsmakers, the opinion shapers, and the pundits.
Fair enough. I believe
that part so that I
As we dissect everything you need to know to make an informed decision. How well do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates.
The position of the Prime Minister will go to a party with the most elected members.
I clearly know that neither Raila nor Ruto are in the work plan on the roadmap for transition as far as the government is concerned.
Informative health discussions, business, farming, Tasty Wednesday, Fitness Thursday, and Feel Good Friday with amazing DJs, celebs, and music bands.
Back to the seasons of my years.
Every Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. Did you know that your business keeps our economy running?
You need the skill, not the papers.
Always tell yourselves, one day at a time. You can't do everything under one roof.
Over time, I've had to realize that good things take time.
The Grind, every Monday at 7:30 p.m. Before the markets open, farmers begin their day, each with a desire to produce the best. But how can they increase the numbers, maintain the standards,
Aitoi ile garlic inafaa itoi, that standard garlic.
reduce the cost,
We spread our risk.
and yet remain the best? Kilimo Diaries, every Sunday when the clock hits 7:30 p.m. Cut, chop, mix, steam, grill, fry. Only on the Throwdown, every Sunday at 6:30 p.m. Owning a home is a keystone to wealth. And building one can be quite daunting. Well, the Realtor gives you the do's and don'ts.
So many brokers in the market who just want to tell you I can be able to supply.
And groundbreaking.
So we clear the area and we set out the place where the house is going to be laid down.
We talk homes.
The law does not allow a client to clear the goods on his or her own if the cargo is coming from outside the country. It's our role as clearing agents to advise you on the duty applicable, to advise you on other charges applicable, and to advise you on the quality of the items that you might need to import, because we are in partnership with Kenya Bureau of Standard. And Kenya Bureau of Standard do put a standard of the products that need to be imported from the other countries. Let's come to the issue of exports. We are the agents of Kenya Revenue Authority. We're authorized to do that. No client can do that on his or her own.
Okay.
We are also the agents of airlines. We will advise you on the right airline to ship your coffee to Pakistan, to ship your tea to Atlanta, Georgia, to ship your avocado to Dubai. We'll give you the right airline. We'll bargain for you the rates. We'll process for you the documentation. And where possible, we'll advise you on the quality of the items that you are going to send, because we depend on you clients. If we are able to export good quality products outside there, we also remain in business. We also try to sell our country so that the products that we get outside the country there, that maybe you have been landed, for example, and you get your Kenyan tea there from Ketepa or any other company, you will make sure that the quality that is being sold there is of the best quality. So we also, apart from doing the business part of it, we also do some advisory aspect of it, where we make sure that the image of this country is portrayed outside there as a good country.
Right, due diligence, pretty much an important step. Are the prices standardized on different items? Or
yes.
It differs?
What happens is that if the fresh produce price is different from the general cargo products, there are some items we call dangerous goods. Say, for example, you are sending oil, or you are sending explosive items or firearms or all that, or live animals. The rates are quite premium. But when it comes to things like avocado, for example, fresh food and flowers, the rates are quite low. It also depends on the company that you approach. Some companies will charge you high, but some companies like Young Line will give you economy of scale, where we ship a lot of items to a particular destination in large quantity. Hence, we bargain for you the lower rates, and it trickles down to your pocket. Yeah.
At that point, when you speak of other companies, is where the fear is at most, And even today, when you want to ship a car, the biggest fear will always get to that point of clearing and forwarding. That is it's at that point that a lot of conning plays out, a lot of worry plays out, a lot of moments where you say, imefika lakini imekwamia mahali fulani, sijui nini. I mean, how then do we work to streamline this particular sector? Because evidently wanasema na zibovu Arabu ya nzima, so when one does a bad thing, it paints a bad picture of the entire sector.
In the year 2015, the Kenya Revenue Authority came up with a training system and a mechanism of controlling the clearing and forwarding field. We also have our own association called KIFWA, which controls and looks at the conduct of clearing and forwarding firms. As a result of that, we used to be 3,200 companies, and we've come down to, as per today, we are 831 clearing and forwarding companies. Yeah. So many companies have been shed aside as a result of either misconduct or lack of qualifications and all that. So there's a system by which we are also trained and we also gauged, so that we don't go there and get clearing companies that are tarnishing other companies' name. But we thank God we thank our Kenya authorities for that, because for some of us who are doing genuine business, we're in the field. But for people who have come there thinking there's a lot of money and they can do their own crooked things, their days are numbered.
Oh, that's good. Good to hear. Speaking of the Kenya Revenue Authority, what is the relationship between you as private entities, the governments, speak of the flight areas, and speak of cargoes that are transported in the side of water, marine, and all that? What is the relationship, and how much is the government doing in terms of ensuring that there's a smooth line of operation when it comes to you operating as entities that hugely contribute to the pocket of the country?
There are so many institutions from the government that are partnering with clearing and forwarding companies to make sure that the goods are moved smoothly. We have Kenya Bureau of Standard, we have Horticultural Development Authority, KFIs, we have Export Processing Council, we have Chamber of Commerce, to name but a few. So they have tried to bring in policies and other parameters that are streamlining, that are trying to streamline the movement of cargo from Nairobi or from Kenya to other countries. At the same time, they have tried to streamline the clearance of cargo in Mombasa, for example, because you realize that initially there used to be so much time taken for the cargo to be cleared in Mombasa. But right now, there's a new system called ISMIS. We moved from early 2000 or early 90s, we used to have a C28. Early 2000, we used to have a C63, and now we have a custom system called ICMS that's controlled by Kentrade and KRA for that matter. So there has been some concerted effort to make sure that the clearing field is smoothened and the time taken to clear goods is shortened. Yeah, but unfortunately, these institutions have been so many. I mean, there are so many, but I think there will come a time when they'll be merged into one single line or window where we'll be able to clear goods smoothly without necessarily going to various windows for the same. Yeah.
All right, that's incredible. Thank you so much, Maina Wayangline. Yeah. I find it so hard to call you that way, but I mean, that's how you are known, and that's why I said it's a household name when it comes to matters clearing and forwarding in the country, and therefore we appreciate the great things that you're doing towards streamlining this. Where do we get you? How do people get a hold of you, especially at this time when there's not much of travel and there's so much that we need to export and import into the country? I mean, even and I'd want to understand this. Like you say, you're doing door to door. Does it mean that someone as Linda, as little as I might want to export or import, you would come in handy?
We don't discriminate our clients because we believe our clients, irrespective of the volume, the items that you send, you are the same persons who are going to reverse to other clients. We are the same person you're going to give to enlarge your business. I'll give you an example. In the year 2000, we were doing some tabaki soapstone carvings for a client, several clients. We used to sell 15 kilos per month. Right now, they are doing 4 containers, 5 containers per month. So you can imagine how we have grown with the clients. Yes. We used to do some moringa seeds exports from Kenya, and moringa flour from Kenya. The year 2015, they used to ship around 100 kilos. Right now, they are doing by air over 1 ton or 2 tons per week. So you can imagine how much we value our clients. We, at the same time, as a company, we are ready to grow. We are ready to grow with you as our clients. We don't discriminate. So you are welcome to deal with us. You are welcome to ship with us. Welcome to handle, give confidence to. You are welcome to give us your confidence grant in terms of us shipping your cargo, because we have experience. We have what it takes. We are the cheapest in the market, and we're able to assist you where you are not able to do the same in terms of rates and time and all that.
How do we get a hold of you?
We are based in Nairobi. We are based in Mombasa as well. And when it comes to clearing at the airport, we are at JKIA. We are also in Mombasa when it comes to clearing by sea. I have an office in JKIA as well as in Westlands. But if you want to get us, you can get us on our website, www.younglandkenya.com. You can get us on our 24 hours line, 0722-708-208. So we are available for you anytime.
Asante sana. Asante for the great insights, and all the best at a time when times are not so rosy. We all still soldier on. The beauty of it is staying afloat, right?
There's hope, there's hope.
Yes, there is indeed hope. Asante sana once again. Maina Wayangline. That's was on matters clearing and forwarding. It is very important. You probably might not have done that at some point, but someone has done it on your behalf, and you probably are having this beautiful dress, these shoes, simply because someone took part in these processes. When you get to that level, then you'd probably want to have some level of understanding. And on that reason, I said it is important that we have this this session, or this show, so to speak. And so we hope that indeed you've picked out something that would be helpful for you. Let's close it at that as we look forward to another session. Asante sana for keeping us company all on Morning Cafe. It was good having you. Have a lovely, lovely day ahead.
As the country gears up for possible BBI referendum and 2022 general elections,
as the salvos enter too familiar territory,
William Ruto will serve his 5-year term as the deputy president.
Pundits Night is here to give you powerful, thought-provoking political commentaries.
The mountain can produce a country.
Give Moses Kuria a chance to respond. Let me ask you this. Are you not taking advantage of first my situation?
You talk about the people with the ultimate power.
Kikuyus will vote for somebody from outside their community to be the next president of this country.
We talk to the newsmakers, the opinion shapers, and the pundits.
Fair enough. I believe
As we dissect everything you need to know to make an informed decision. How well do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates.
The position of the Prime Minister will go to a party with the most elected members.
I clearly know that neither Raila nor Ruto are in the work plan on the roadmap for transition as far as the government is concerned.
Informative health discussions, business, farming, Tasty Wednesday, Fitness Thursday, and Feel Good Friday with amazing DJs, celebs, and music bands.
Back to the seasons of my youth.
Every Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. Did you know that your business keeps our economy running?
You need the skill, not the papers.
Always tell yourselves, one day at a time. You can't do everything under one roof.
Over time, I've had to realize that good things take time.
The Grind, every Monday at 7:30 p.m. Before the markets open, farmers begin their day, each with a desire to produce the best. But how can they increase the numbers, maintain the standards,
Aitoe ile garlic inafaa itoe, that standard garlic.
reduce the cost,
We spread our risk.
and yet remain the best? Kilimo Diaries, every Sunday when the clock hits 7:30 p.m. Cut, chop, mix, steam, grill, fry. Only on the Throwdown, every Sunday at 6:30 p.m. Owning a home is a keystone to wealth. And building one can be quite daunting. Well, the Realtor gives you the do's and don'ts.
Some so many brokers in the market who just want to tell you I can be able to supply.
And groundbreaking.
So we clear the area and we set out the place where the house is going to be laid down.
We talk homes, land, and property.
With me, Currency Daniel.
Every Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. Next episode of Coffee with the Movie.
But today I'm with Bamboo, the African band too.
Funny how the enemy uses ladies a lot.
I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah, but his statue, it looked like the angel of death or something like that, with a black robe and a skeleton and it's holding a pole.
Yeah.
With it's a sickle. It's
Catch this story every Sunday at 8 p.m. As the country gears up for possible BBI referendum and 2022 general elections,
As the salvos enter too familiar territory,
William Ruto will serve his 5-year term as the deputy president.
Pundits Night is here to give you powerful, thought-provoking political commentaries.
The mountain can produce a country.
Give Moses Kuria a chance to respond. Let me ask you this. Are you not taking advantage